I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my very soul. The moment I discovered that our emergency fund, the hard-earned safety net we'd built over years of sacrifice, had been entirely squandered on a lavish trip for her affair partner. In those first 100 heartbeats, every promise we made about security and our future together shattered into 1,000 shards of betrayal and disbelief. The room around me, once filled with comforting normalcy, blurred into an abyss of emptiness and rage. That brutal revelation not only stripped me of our shared financial dreams but ignited within me a fierce resolve. If she could waste our lifeline so recklessly, then I would reclaim every ounce of dignity and rebuild my life from the ruins, on my own terms. I had always believed that our emergency fund was the guardian angel of our future, a carefully nurtured reserve meant for unforeseen hardships, meant to ensure that no crisis would catch us off guard. Every spare dollar I had set aside, every sacrifice I had made from my modest income, was dedicated to that dream of stability. I envisioned a life where we could weather any storm together, confident that even in the worst of times, our finances would hold strong. But that dream was brutally dismantled the day I saw the bank statement. I had returned home from work expecting our usual quiet evening, only to find a series of withdrawals I couldn't explain. As I scrolled through the transactions on my laptop, my heart pounded with growing horror. The numbers were irrefutable. Our emergency fund, the very cushion we'd built to protect us, had been completely drained. The shock of betrayal hit me like a freight train. I sat at the kitchen table, my eyes fixed on the glaring digits that confirmed what I had long feared but never truly imagined. It wasn't just a sum of money, it was the manifestation of every sacrifice, every missed opportunity, every moment of painstaking effort to secure a future for us. I felt as though my entire world had collapsed into a single devastating moment of truth. The cold, clinical numbers on the screen were not just figures. They were a declaration that the trust we had so carefully cultivated had been shattered, that our future together was now as fragile as glass. In that instant, I experienced a torrent of emotions: heartbreak, anger, and a deep, searing sense of humiliation. I couldn't fathom how the woman I had once trusted implicitly could divert our safety net for her own secret desires. In the aftermath of that crushing discovery, the days that followed were an agonizing blend of isolation and introspection. I remember pacing the empty halls of our home, every familiar corner a painful reminder of what we once had. The living room, which had been a sanctuary of shared laughter and warmth, now echoed with a silence so profound it felt like an indictment. I found myself replaying every memory, every late-night conversation about our future, every promise made in whispered confidences, wondering how I had been so blind to the subtle signs. Had I missed the furtive phone calls? The whispered discussions when I wasn't around? Each thought was a dagger, and with each, the sting of betrayal deepened. That night, with the weight of our lost security pressing down on me, I sank into the worn armchair in our study and opened an old leather-bound journal. I had filled its pages with dreams and hopes during better times, and now it became a repository for the raw, unfiltered truth of my pain. I wrote feverishly about the shock that gripped me, the anger that surged like wildfire, and the bitter realization that our shared future was nothing more than a mirage. In those anguished lines, I began to carve out a new resolve. A determination that if she could waste our emergency fund on a secret escapade, then I would rebuild my world piece by piece, reclaiming not only my financial security but also my self-respect. Every word was a silent vow. I would not be defined by her betrayal. In the solitude of that long, dark night, I made a decision that would mark the beginning of a profound transformation. I resolved that I would take control of my destiny. I would begin by safeguarding the remnants of what was left of my personal finances, and then I would work to rebuild our lost security from the ground up. I realized that her actions, as hurtful as they were, had inadvertently awakened a part of me that had been dormant for too long, a part that craved independence, that yearned to assert its worth, that refused to be diminished by someone else's selfish desires. The shock had shattered my previous illusions about our future together, and in its place, I began to see a new, uncharted path unfolding before me. I spent the early hours of the morning meticulously reviewing every transaction, cross-referencing bank statements, and speaking with my financial advisor. Each confirmation of the theft was a painful reminder, yet it also reinforced my determination. I was not left with nothing. I had always been prudent enough to maintain a small reserve of my own, a contingency fund I had set aside in secret just in case. That decision, once made out of a quiet fear of the unknown, now shone as a beacon of hope amid the devastation. With my personal funds still intact, I began to draft a plan to reclaim control of my future. I outlined steps in my journal, detailed strategies to rebuild our financial foundation, to invest wisely in new opportunities, and to ensure that I would never again be caught off guard by such betrayal. I wrote about the importance of self-reliance and the need to redefine success on my own terms. The plan wasn't just about recovering money, it was about reclaiming my identity, my worth, and my dreams that had long been overshadowed by the trust one had placed in someone who ultimately betrayed me. That night, as I closed my journal and looked out into the dark expanse of the world, I felt a mix of sorrow and a burgeoning hope. I knew the journey ahead would be arduous and fraught with challenges, legal hurdles, emotional scars, and the daunting task of rebuilding a future that had once seemed so certain. But I also knew that I had the strength to rise above the pain. I had already begun to transform that searing betrayal into a catalyst for change, a turning point that would define the rest of my life. In that quiet, reflective moment, I vowed to myself that I would reclaim every piece of my future, no matter the cost. I would rebuild my financial security, reassert my self-respect, and ultimately, I would emerge stronger and more determined than ever before. With that promise echoing in my heart, I drifted off to sleep, the bitter taste of betrayal mingling with the faintest glimmer of hope. That night marked the end of one chapter, a chapter defined by shared dreams turned to dust, and the beginning of a journey toward a future that was entirely mine. I knew that each step forward, each painstaking decision, would be a testament to my resilience. And as I lay in the dark, the shadows around me seemed to whisper of new possibilities, of a life rebuilt from the very wreckage of our shattered past. In the aftermath of that shattering night, I found myself caught in a relentless whirlwind of introspection and decisive action. The cold reality that our emergency fund had been completely depleted to fund her secret affair left me with a potent mix of anger, grief, and a burning resolve to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Every day felt like a battle between drowning in despair and forging a new path forward, one where I would not allow her betrayal to define my future. I began by confronting the stark evidence head-on. For days, I meticulously combed through bank statements and transaction records, each withdrawal a brutal reminder of the financial safety net we had built together. I spent long hours with my financial advisor, retracing every step of the fund's disappearance. It became painfully clear that every dollar we had painstakingly saved was now lost to her reckless indulgence. As the numbers confirmed my worst fears, I also recalled the small personal reserve I had secretly maintained, a contingency that, even though modest, now shone as a beacon of hope. That hidden cushion affirmed one undeniable truth: while our joint resources had been misused, I was not left entirely destitute. This realization ignited within me a determination to rebuild my financial security on my own terms. With that resolve firming up, I began drafting a new financial strategy. I spent days outlining a plan that would transform the devastation into a catalyst for personal growth. Every morning before the city awoke, I rose early to review my finances, set goals, and plan for the future. I mapped out detailed steps to reallocate my remaining assets, invest wisely, and secure a new safety net that could never be compromised again. I met with several trusted financial experts, each meeting reinforcing my belief that, although our shared savings were gone, I still had the means to construct a future defined solely by my efforts and foresight. Every piece of advice, every strategy for diversification and growth, filled me with a quiet pride. I began to see my financial future as a blank canvas, one on which I could paint a picture of resilience and renewed hope. Parallel to the financial overhaul, I turned inward to address the emotional devastation. I spent countless nights alone in the quiet darkness of our now empty house, its silence echoing with memories of better times. The living room, once filled with warmth and laughter, was now a hollow space that seemed to mock the dreams we'd shared. In that solitude, I confronted the full spectrum of my feelings: intense grief over the loss of our collective security, searing anger at the betrayal, and a gnawing loneliness that threatened to overwhelm me. To navigate these turbulent emotions, I sought the guidance of a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma and personal empowerment. In our sessions, I learned to peel away the layers of hurt that had accumulated over the years. I talked about the subtle signs I'd ignored, the fears I had suppressed, and the way I had allowed our joint dreams to eclipse my own. My therapist taught me that forgiveness was not about excusing her actions, but about freeing myself from the crushing weight of resentment. Slowly, I began to understand that the pain, however deep, was also the impetus for growth, a necessary crucible that would forge a stronger, more independent version of myself. Even as I worked to heal emotionally, I threw myself into my professional life with a relentless drive. I had always taken pride in my work, viewing each challenge as an opportunity to prove my worth. Now, fueled by the sting of betrayal, every shift at the office became a mission to demonstrate that I was not defined by someone else's recklessness. I volunteered for the most demanding projects, stayed late to perfect presentations, and even initiated innovative strategies that had long been on the back burner. The operating room, the board meetings, and the late-night strategy sessions transformed into arenas where I channeled my raw anger into unwavering focus. With each successful project, each commendation from my superiors, I felt my self-worth reaffirmed. It was as though every accolade was a silent rebuke to the memory of that painful evening, each one a step closer to the future I was determined to build on my own. At work, I began to see tangible results from my renewed dedication. My colleagues noticed the transformation, a new confidence that radiated from me, an assertiveness in decision-making that had been absent before. I started receiving recognition not just for my technical expertise, but for my leadership and vision. Projects that once had me on the fringes of success were now heralded as innovative breakthroughs. Every meeting and every successful operation was a clear reminder that I had reclaimed my identity and my professional prowess. I was not merely surviving, I was thriving, and every day I proved to myself that I was capable of more than anyone had ever believed. In the midst of this transformation, I also sought to reconnect with the creative side of my soul, a part of me that had long been subdued by the demands of our shared life. I returned to writing, a form of expression that had always been a refuge during times of turmoil. I began to document my journey with raw honesty, chronicling every emotional setback, every hard-won victory, every spark of insight that emerged in the quiet moments of reflection. My journal became a trusted companion, a place where I could pour out my frustrations and, gradually, see a path forward through the tangled emotions. I even started a private blog, sharing snippets of my story with a small, supportive audience. The outpouring of empathy and encouragement from readers who had faced similar betrayals provided me with a renewed sense of purpose. Their words, sincere and validating, reinforced that I was not alone in my struggle, and that my journey of self-reclamation was a beacon for others. As the weeks turned into months, the combined effect of my professional pursuits and personal healing began to reshape my life in profound ways. I established a rigorous daily routine that balanced work, exercise, therapy, and creative expression. Mornings were dedicated to long runs that cleared my mind and strengthened my resolve, while afternoons were consumed by focused work that pushed me to innovate and lead. Evenings were reserved for introspection and reflection, hours spent with my journal, meditating on the lessons of the day and planning for the future. This structure, though demanding, became the backbone of my transformation, a steady rhythm that anchored me amidst the chaos of change. Every day I set new goals for myself. Ambitious targets that reflected not only my professional aspirations but also my personal commitment to self-respect. I revisited the dreams I once had, the visions of a life where my worth was measured by my own achievements rather than the shallow judgments of others. I began to see that the pain I had endured was not a curse, but a catalyst, a necessary push that had awakened a strength within me that I never knew existed. I resolved to channel that strength into every decision I made, every project I undertook, and every step I took toward rebuilding a future that was unequivocally my own. I also reconnected with old friends, those who had always seen the real me, long before the weight of betrayal threatened to erase my identity. We gathered in small, intimate settings, sharing our experiences and offering each other the kind of support that only comes from deep, genuine connection. Their faith in me, their encouragement, and their honest reflections served as a powerful reminder that my value was inherent and not defined by someone else's actions. In those heartfelt conversations, I discovered that the path to healing was not one of isolation, but of shared experiences and mutual growth. Each story exchanged, each word of encouragement, reinforced the belief that I was capable of rising above the pain and creating a life that was filled with possibility and authenticity. All these efforts, both the relentless drive at work and the tender, introspective moments of personal healing, began to coalesce into a new vision for my future. I started planning for long-term goals, outlining a roadmap that would lead me from the scars of betrayal to the promise of a brighter tomorrow. I set ambitious targets for my career, exploring opportunities for further advancement, and I began to invest in ventures that aligned with my newfound values. Every plan was a declaration of independence, a firm stance that I would no longer let anyone else's shallow expectations dictate my destiny. As the months of transformation passed, I could feel the old wounds healing, slowly replaced by a deep, resilient sense of self. My career flourished as I took on increasingly challenging roles, and my personal growth was reflected in every success and every genuine smile shared with friends. I realized that the betrayal I had suffered had, in its own cruel way, freed me to rediscover who I was meant to be, a person defined not by the limitations of a failed partnership, but by the boundless potential of a life reclaimed. The journey was far from over, but each day I moved forward with the certainty that my destiny was mine to shape, a destiny built on hard-won lessons, unwavering determination, and the profound belief that I was, above all, enough. That cold morning, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon and cast long golden rays across the quiet streets, I knew I had reached the final stage of my long, arduous journey, a journey that had taken me from the depths of betrayal to the pinnacle of my own self-reclamation. By now, the bitter shock of discovering that our emergency fund had been completely drained to fund her secret escapade with her affair partner had evolved from a searing wound into a series of hard-won lessons. I had watched her world collapse into panic and financial ruin, while I painstakingly rebuilt mine from the ashes. Every step I had taken over these past months, from meticulously reviewing every bank statement to harnessing my raw emotions in long reflective runs, had led me to this moment of quiet triumph. I still recall the turning point when I finally understood that my life was not defined by her reckless betrayal. It was during one of those solitary nights, when the silence of our empty home was punctuated only by the steady tick of the clock and the soft hum of my thoughts, that I realized something profound. Every dollar, every sacrifice, every tear I had shed was a seed from which a new future could grow. In that moment, I decided that if she could waste our emergency fund on a secret escapade, then I would reclaim every ounce of my dignity and rebuild my world from scratch, stronger, wiser, and entirely on my own terms. Emboldened by that realization, I threw myself into a comprehensive plan of rebuilding. My mornings became sacred rituals of renewal. Before the city even stirred, I would lace up my running shoes and hit the quiet streets. Those long, solitary runs were not just physical exercise, they were meditative journeys where I confronted every lingering doubt and converted them into determination. With each step, I could almost feel the heavy burden of betrayal lifting, replaced by a growing, unshakable resolve. The crisp morning air filled my lungs with a promise of new beginnings, and as the horizon brightened, so too did my vision for the future. By day, I immersed myself in work with a renewed fervor. The hospital corridors, once echoing with the hum of routine, now pulsed with my relentless energy and focus. Every operation, every critical decision in the operating room became a testament to the strength I had discovered in my darkest hours. I led surgical teams with confidence and introduced innovative techniques that not only saved lives but also pushed the boundaries of what I thought I was capable of. My dedication did not go unnoticed. In board meetings, colleagues who had once been indifferent began to regard me with admiration. I received recognition for my innovative approach and soon earned a promotion that not only validated my expertise but also symbolized my triumph over the pain that had threatened to break me. Each accolade and every nod of approval was a silent, resounding declaration. I had risen from the ruins, and I was more than what anyone had ever doubted. Outside the intense demands of my professional life, I embarked on a personal quest to heal and rediscover my identity. I sought solace in therapy, where I confronted the raw emotions of betrayal and sorrow. In those sessions, I learned that forgiveness was not about absolving the actions of someone who had hurt me, but about liberating myself from the endless cycle of resentment. With the compassionate guidance of my therapist, I began to transform every painful memory into a stepping stone for growth. I allowed myself to grieve, to feel the full spectrum of my emotions, and then I slowly emerged with a renewed sense of self. A man who knew that his worth was not determined by someone else's selfish choices, but by his own inner strength and integrity. I also reconnected with the creative parts of my soul that had long lain dormant under the weight of everyday pressures. I returned to writing with a raw honesty that poured out onto every page of my journal and later onto my blog. I wrote about the depths of my despair, the agonizing shock of discovering that our shared future had been gambled away, and the slow, arduous process of reclaiming my identity. Each entry was cathartic, a blend of bitter memories and hopeful plans that charted the course of my transformation. I found that by sharing my story with a small but supportive audience, I not only began to heal myself but also inspired others who had faced their own betrayals. The messages of encouragement I received reminded me that my journey was part of a larger tapestry of human resilience, a narrative in which every setback was simply the precursor to a greater comeback. As time passed, my renewed focus on both personal and professional growth began to yield tangible results. I started to see my carefully reconstructed financial future take shape. With the help of a trusted financial advisor, I reallocated my remaining assets into a diversified portfolio designed to not only secure my future but to fuel new ventures. Every positive update from my investments was a small victory, a reassurance that I was on the right path, that even though our emergency fund had been lost, I was still in control of my destiny. I used these gains to plan for a new home, a modest yet elegant sanctuary that would stand as a testament to my resilience and independence. I spent hours exploring neighborhoods, attending property viewings, and meticulously planning every detail, from the layout of the living room to the choice of colors that would fill my new space with warmth and hope. The process of purchasing a new home was both exhilarating and symbolic. It wasn't just about acquiring a piece of real estate, it was a powerful statement of autonomy. Every signature on a contract, every handshake with a real estate agent, reinforced the idea that I was reclaiming the future that had once been threatened by betrayal. I envisioned a space that would not only serve as a refuge but as a launching pad for my ambitions, a place where I could host friends, celebrate milestones, and live fully unburdened by the shadows of the past. Each room in that house was to be filled with reminders of my journey, photographs capturing moments of triumph, artwork that spoke of the beauty emerging from hardship, and personal mementos that celebrated the fact that I had, against all odds, rebuilt my life. Even as I pursued these external goals, the internal transformation continued to blossom. I made it a point to nourish my body and soul with practices that reinforced my newfound strength. I adopted a daily routine of mindfulness and meditation, learning to quiet the persistent echoes of betrayal that sometimes threatened to resurface. I found solace in the gentle rhythms of nature, a long walk in the park, the soft murmur of a nearby stream, or simply the vibrant colors of a sunrise. These moments of quiet reflection became rituals that not only healed my wounded spirit but also reminded me of the boundless potential of the future. I realized that true empowerment comes from within, from the ability to transform pain into purpose, and that every challenge, no matter how crushing, was an opportunity to forge a deeper, more resilient version of myself. In the midst of these personal victories, I also began to rebuild my social world. I reconnected with friends who had always seen the best in me, those who had stood by my side long before the weight of betrayal had darkened my horizon. We met in intimate gatherings, small dinners, coffee dates, and leisurely walks, where we reminisced about old times and shared hopes for new beginnings. Their unwavering support was a reminder that I was not defined by the mistakes of others, but by the strength and integrity that I had cultivated over the years. In these honest conversations, I found the courage to laugh again, to dream once more, and to believe that the future held limitless possibilities. I also ventured into new experiences that broadened my perspective. I attended seminars on leadership, joined community groups that focused on personal development, and even volunteered for causes that resonated with my values. Each new experience was a stepping stone, an opportunity to learn, grow, and solidify the person I was becoming. The more I invested in these opportunities, the more I saw that my journey of healing was a dynamic process, a continuous evolution shaped by every lesson learned and every victory achieved. One evening, at a small local event dedicated to personal growth, I found myself sharing my story with an audience of strangers. I recounted the painful night when betrayal had ripped my world apart, and how, through relentless determination, I had turned that heartbreak into the fuel for my transformation. As I spoke, I saw nods of understanding and expressions of empathy on the faces of those listening. Their response was a powerful affirmation that my journey was not only my own, but that it resonated with many who had faced similar challenges. That moment, standing before an audience and sharing the intimate details of my struggle and triumph, was cathartic. It reinforced that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt had been worth it. I was not defined by what had been taken from me, but by what I had built in its place, a future that was unshakable and entirely mine. In those days, I also began to strategize for the long term. I set new, ambitious goals for my career, planning to leverage my experiences to secure further advancements. I envisioned a future where my work would not only bring financial stability but also contribute to innovative projects that could redefine the field. I began attending conferences, engaging with thought leaders, and even mentoring younger colleagues, sharing with them the lessons I had learned from my own arduous journey. Each professional milestone, each acknowledgement of my contributions, was a resounding reminder that I had overcome the pain and that my future was filled with promise. All the while, I continued to nurture my creative side. My writing, once a private refuge, had grown into a powerful medium for self-expression and connection. I started a blog where I detailed my journey, from the depths of betrayal to the heights of empowerment. The blog became a repository of hope, a place where I could articulate the complexities of rebuilding a life after profound loss. The support I received from readers, comments, messages, and shared stories affirmed that my voice, once silenced by betrayal, was now a beacon for those struggling to find their own strength. It was a reminder that every challenge I faced was a chapter in a larger, universal narrative of resilience. As the months turned into a year, I began to see the mosaic of my transformation come together. The professional accolades, the financial stability, the deep personal growth, all converged into a new identity that was entirely my own. I was no longer defined by the betrayal or by the mistakes of a shared past. I had become a man who had reclaimed his destiny through hard-won perseverance. Every small victory, from a successful presentation at work to a heartfelt conversation with a friend, was a stepping stone that reaffirmed my commitment to building a future based solely on my own values and dreams. In the final stretch of this journey, I took one last look back at the remnants of what had once been our shared life. The empty rooms of our old home, the faded memories of a relationship that had crumbled under the weight of betrayal, now served as bittersweet reminders of how far I had come. I had taken the pain that had once threatened to break me and transformed it into a driving force for change. With my financial security restored, my professional identity reinvigorated, and my personal spirit reborn, I stood on the threshold of a new era, a future where I was the sole architect of my destiny. That realization filled me with a quiet, unshakable confidence as I prepared to step forward into a future that was as unpredictable as it was filled with promise. I knew that the scars of betrayal would always be a part of me, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they had become the foundation of my resilience, a constant reminder that even in the face of the deepest wounds, the human spirit can rise, rebuild, and flourish. Now, as I sit in the peaceful solitude of my new home, a sanctuary that I built with my own hard-fought efforts, I reflect on the long, winding path that has brought me here. I see before me not the echoes of a shattered past, but the vibrant promise of a future defined by my own choices, my own dreams, and my unwavering belief in my own worth. I have transformed betrayal into a catalyst for growth, and every challenge has become a stepping stone toward a destiny that is entirely mine. With each new day, I embrace the journey ahead with gratitude and determination. I know there will be challenges still, moments when the pain resurfaces, but I also know that I have the strength to meet them head-on. My career continues to thrive, my financial security grows stronger, and my heart beats with a renewed sense of purpose. I have learned that true empowerment comes not from what is given to you, but from what you take for yourself, even when the world tries to strip you of your dreams. This is my story, a saga of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately redemption. It is the story of a man who refused to be defined by the mistakes of the past, who chose to reclaim his dignity and build a future on his own terms. As I step boldly into tomorrow, I do so with an unbreakable spirit, a mind sharpened by every trial, and a heart full of hope. Every step I take is a testament to the fact that no matter how deep the betrayal, the power to rebuild lies within. My destiny is mine to create, one courageous, determined step at a time.